comment, and I think Connie referred to it, was a question I asked at the last Emmanuel webinar. And everybody said to me, well, without the politicians, it was the wrong place to ask. So now we have the number 2 politician in the country. I would like to ask you your view on this. Now I know this government did not write the constitution, but and I'm sure I may have had this conversation with you, but we have adopted a constitution based on the US model. We have a president, a vice president, about 500 legislators in Abuja, about 40 ministers that are defined. The constitution says you must have a minister from every state. So whether or not you need 36 ministers, you must have 36 ministers. We have 36 governors, 36 deputy governors. Each state has a status of assembly, 774 local government chairmen with councillors. I mean, by definition, no matter how hard you try, Your Excellency, those offices you have to fund with their special assistants and their vehicles and so on. That basically makes us an expensive country. Now, to bring perspective to that, if we benchmark it against the United States, the greater city of Atlanta has a GDP that is higher than the GDP of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So that's one part of it, but it's not the richest city, run by a mayor, the equivalent of one of our 774 local government chairmen. You know, and I mean, so all those people are doing work in a country with the GDP that is less than the city of Atlanta. Or maybe another way, I don't want to be disrespectful, but the annual sales of Tesla exceed the GDP of our country. So should we not begin to cut our cloth according to our size? Should we not begin to look at all these costs, and by looking at the Constitution itself, maybe turn these legislators into part-time legislators? You know, maybe have a unicameral and not bicameral legislature. Maybe look at the local governments and have them run by employees of ministries of local government and so on. These are ideas that I think we need to think out of the box to reduce structural costs and then make government more sustainable over the long term. I would like to stop here and just thank Your Excellency and Donald and Ngozi. I say it's been an excellent webinar. I'm sure I've seen all the comments. Everybody is extremely impressed, and thank you very much. And for your gray hair, I have some dye that I use I can pass on to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. Great to see you again. You know, and I hope when we're unlocked from the lockdown, we'll actually be able to see in person, see physically.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks, Excellency.
Regarding the issue you raised about the size of government, again, you are absolutely right on the button. There is no question that we're dealing with large and expensive government. But as you know, given the current constitutional structure, those who would have to vote to reduce government, especially to become part-time legislators, are the very legislators themselves. So you can imagine that we may not get very much traction if they were asked to vote themselves, as it were, out of their current relatively decent circumstances. So I think that there is a need for a national for a national debate on this question, and there's a need for the will to ensure that we're not wasting the kind of resources that we ought to use on development on overheads. At the moment, our overheads, as you know, are almost 70% of revenues. So there's no question at all that we must reduce the size of government. And part of what you'll see in the Economic Sustainability Plan also, and several of the other initiatives, is trying to go to some extent to what was recommended in the Onosai report, to collapse a few of the agencies, to become a bit more efficient in terms of how we use current MDAs and those that we do not need anymore. And then also, generally speaking, also trying to make government much more efficient with whatever it is that it has. So for example, at the moment, we know that given some of what has been done already, there is the size of the workforce that we thought we had it probably isn't true. And that goes for several of the services as well. As we bring the military onto the IPIS electronic platform, and as we bring the universities also onto the electronic platform, we hope that we'll be able to do so. We will definitely be able to reduce some of the fat that we see at the moment, or some of the waste that we see at the moment, which is a lot of money being spent on ghost workers and ghost entities generally. So there is no question at all. We must do something about the cost of governance, But again, what I've seen is that when you ask government to do something about its own costs, it's usually, especially the legislators who have to vote on these things, it's very, very difficult to say the least. But I agree with you entirely. Yes.